Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this presentation from Professor Janet Thompson Jackson. We are now at the end of Wellbeing in the Law Week, and we appreciate everyone who's participated in the KALAP sponsored activities all week as we take a moment to stop and celebrate well-being in this profession. Professor Jackson is coming to us to talk about the final day of Wellbeing in the Law Week, which is emotional wellness. And she is giving us a presentation this afternoon on managing emotions in stressful times. So with that, Professor Jackson, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Emily, and it's good to be here with you and Ellen. I'm honored to be here and sharing this space with you and with everyone who's watching today. So, this talk on emotional wellness is for anyone who is seeking a deeper sense of emotional wellness, whether you're navigating recovery, whether you've experienced burnout or trauma or chronic stress, or just the complexity of being a human being in very uncertain times. This is for you. And this isn't about fixing anything or getting anything just right, because we're not necessarily going to do that. And it doesn't always have to be about fixing. Emotional wellness doesn't mean perfection. That's something that I had to learn too. It wasn't always easy for me. I got pretty good at suppressing my emotions because I thought it was easier than dealing with them. But I quickly learned that that wasn't easy. I also learned something that I'm going to ask you to do right now, and that is to meet yourself where you are, with compassion, with acceptance, and maybe even with curiosity. So let's get started with a good definition, maybe a grounding definition of emotional wellness. First, I'm going to talk about what it is not. Emotional wellness is not about being happy all the time. It is not about always being positive or calm and cool and collected. It is about being able to experience, express, and move through a full range of emotions, the bright emotions as well as the dense emotions, the beautiful and joyful and fuzzy feeling emotions, as well as the messy and darker emotions that we sometimes like to avoid. Emotional wellness is experiencing all of that. It's also not getting stuck in any particular emotion because we want those emotions to be able to flow through us. So it's the capacity maybe to feel anger without exploding and to feel sadness without completely shutting down, to feel fear without running away or numbing ourselves from an experience. Emotional wellness also means living in alignment with our personal values and our professional values. It means having a healthy internal response and feeling safe enough emotionally to be honest with ourselves and with other people. And it's also about connection, connection to other people, connection to a meaning in our lives. For some, it's about a connection with something larger than ourselves, whether that's spiritual or universal or cultural in some way. So I'm going to stop now and ask you, where are you right now emotionally? If you had to describe what you're feeling emotionally right now, would you be able to do that? And one way we can kind of tap into that is just to turn our attention inward, be willing to sit with a little discomfort, because sometimes acknowledging or even feeling what we're experiencing emotionally is uncomfortable. And so it's a willingness to be able to do that. But just pausing, and I naturally close my eyes when I do this, and you can close your eyes too. and just pause and think about first, maybe bringing your attention to your breath so that you really can go inward and just thinking, what am I feeling right now? Without judgment, with a little curiosity, just what am I feeling? And just acknowledging that. So, why is this important for the legal profession? Well, as you know, in the in the legal profession, we are trained to think a certain way. We're trained to seek certainty. We're trained to solve problems and to have a certain level of composure. In fact, we're often rewarded for being very analytical, being rational, and even being detached. We learn that from the time we're in law school. And by its very nature, this way of thinking over time can take a deep emotional toll. Studies have been done on this, and they show that even going through law school, there is a sense of empathy and connection that's lost simply because of the way we're trained. And so many of the skills that we learn and behaviors that we learn that make us good lawyers also tend to dull our emotional self and our emotional sense. And so it's really important to tap into that and to rebuild that and restore that over time. So, on top of all of that, we often internalize the idea that emotions are a liability. The problem is that when we shove our emotions down, they don't always disappear. I experienced that myself in law school when my father died, and I buried my grief for, as I told myself, a more convenient time. I just won't grieve right now. I'll grieve later because that always works, right? Well, when that grief started to resurface, and I could no longer hold it down, it triggered a whole host of problems. I was practicing law at that time. In fact, my first year of practice in big law, and a lot of stress, a lot of overwork, being on call on demand all the time. At least I felt I needed to be. And the stress really got to me, and it wasn't as easy to keep all of those emotions underground, to keep that ball under the water. And so I found myself drinking too much. I found myself with an eating disorder. And that was all trying to cope and to manage these emotions that I was trying to manage and to kind of suppress instead of having to deal with them. For others, emotions may resurface or try to resurface through a burnout, through overwork, through substance or alcohol misuse, through a relationship breakdown. It happens in a variety of ways. But the fact is that emotions are not going to stay buried. And so the best thing to do is to learn how to be in touch with them and to manage them. So emotional wellness, in contrast to that, helps us to build resistance and to build resistance that and resilience that is sustainable. It allows us to hold all of the complexities that we sometimes try to avoid and the contradictions. It helps us to feel both strong and strongly convicted about something and at the same time feel compassion. It helps us to exhibit strength professionally and personally, and to also be vulnerable and to experience grief and to also experience happiness. I know I had such a problem holding the both and for such a long time. And through the work that I did, the inner work that we'll get to in a minute, I found a relief that I actually didn't know was impossible, that was possible. And also, when we're emotionally well, We can also stay connected, better connected to ourselves and to other people, even when we're going through the most difficult times. So I have another question for you. How do you normally respond when you are feeling emotional discomfort? Do you shut down? Do you kind of run away? Do you use food or alcohol or some other substance as a way to kind of numb the feelings? Maybe you exercise a whole lot or do something else. Just check in with yourself and think about, what do I do when I'm emotionally uncomfortable? Do I allow myself to sit with that? And that's sometimes still hard for me. I still have to remind myself, instead of automatically doing something or trying to solve a problem, trying to fix something. Oh, I'm feeling sad right now, or I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm angry, or something's going on. I want to try to fix that. I've now learned to sit with it for a moment and say, okay, this is how I'm feeling. And I try not to judge myself. This is how I'm feeling. What's going on here? For me, journaling has been a really great tool in getting more in touch with what I'm feeling emotionally and kind of seeing how I'm describing it on paper and see how it plays out. It's amazing. Once you start writing, sometimes feelings and emotions and thoughts come out that we didn't even know were there. So, what happens when emotional wellness is missing? Well, when it's missing, we can really start to disconnect. We disconnect from ourselves, from others, and sometimes from our purpose or our meaning in life, our purpose for the work that we do. We may become really reactive. Some people become numb. Sometimes that's when our perfectionism really comes out. Maybe we're overly self-critical. A lot of times that feeling of being an imposter or the negative self-talk, that constant self-criticism comes up. Many times that comes up because we are disconnected emotionally. We may find ourselves stuck in a bit of a survival mode where we're over functioning, or we're under functioning, but we just feel like we are trying, we're on a treadmill and we're just trying to keep up. If we don't acknowledge those emotions, as I experienced, they're going to come out somehow, sideways or through the back door, maybe even in physical symptoms. I remember when I first started practicing, and again, this was after my dad died when I was in law school, and I was trying to avoid those emotions in any way that I could. I ended up at, what, 26 years old with an ulcer. And that was absolutely a physical manifestation and consequence of keeping all of that inside. It was literally starting to eat away at my stomach. So it could be physical symptoms. Maybe there are relational or relationship conflicts that we're having that keep on popping up, or harmful coping mechanisms. I think I experienced all of those at one time. And that kind of emotional dysfunction doesn't always look dramatic. It's not always a dramatic thing. Sometimes it can just be kind of a very low level of feeling disconnected with our lives or with other people. But over time, that builds on itself, and it can pull us away from our sense of purpose, from our joy in our life and the peace in our life. So, for anyone experiencing burnout, trauma, or just ongoing stress, it's also important to know that emotional wellness is not just a quick fix. It's something we have to work on, especially for people who are used to kind of living in our heads and not necessarily used to feeling and experiencing our emotions. but it can be a real foundation for overall all healing in our lives. Because burnout isn't just exhaustion, it's literally a depletion of our emotional reserves. It's a numbing out, it's a this denseness, it's an emptiness of emotional reserves. And trauma, for people experiencing trauma, it's not just something that happened to you that caused the trauma. It's what's happening inside of you because of the trauma. And so emotional wellness provides us kind of the inner structure, the a container to process all of these experiences without being consumed by them. Emotional wellness helps us to regulate instead of repress. It helps us to feel instead of to be a fuse that just kind of blows up and responds. And this is what I found that was really important. Emotional wellness and regulation helps us to create space between the emotion and the reaction. That probably was one of the most helpful findings and experiences for me, that when I started sitting with my emotion, and for me when I started meditating, because that was one of the things that really helped me, the journaling and the meditation, it helped me to learn to have a little bit of space between something happening and how I was going to react to it, or how I was going to try to avoid reacting to it. So it helped me to create space between feeling stressed and grabbing some food to stuff down emotions, or even feeling stressed and immediately going out for a run to try to distract myself. So it can be really almost insidious, because running and exercise is a good thing, right? Yes, but we have to also look at why are we doing that activity? And if it's to avoid something else, that can be okay for a minute. But if we continue to do that and never deal with the emotions that are inside of us, then we're kind of asking for those things to erupt at a later time. So for me, it was finding that space, finding that breath, finding that pause. And that's where I started my healing. So how do we build emotional wellness? We've talked a lot about why it's important, what happens if we don't have it, how we're avoiding it, but how do we build emotional wellness? And the first thing always is awareness. How aware are we of where we are right now? I asked earlier, can you kind of name what you're feeling emotionally? Can you name that feeling? What am I feeling? Can I put a name to it? There's so many times that, especially if I'm coaching someone in the legal profession and I say, what are you feeling? They tell me what they're thinking. That's great. I understand what you're thinking, but let's turn that into, what are you feeling? What are you feeling? What are those thoughts making you feel? And just continuing to ask yourself that question until you get to the feeling. A bigger ask I find for people is, okay, can you notice where that's showing up in your body? And I've had so many people say, I don't feel anything in my body, because we are so used to kind of dealing with what is above the neck, just dealing with our brains, our minds. That's where our currency is as lawyers and as legal professionals. But it's worth it to think about, okay, where is that coming up for me in my body? So can I name what I'm feeling, not just what I'm thinking, but what I'm feeling? And where am I feeling that in my body? I find for myself a lot of times when I'm feeling some stress or fear or something, I feel a knot in my stomach, or sometimes I even feel a little bit of a pain or an ache in my lower back. And what you soon find is that when you're in a stressful situation, sometimes you notice that your body starts speaking to you even before you have the thought or the words to put to it. And that's really helpful to understand that, oh, someone told me that they feel it in their shoulders, right? Where their neck meets their shoulders. And if they feel that, even before they have a realization that they're stressed out, they notice, oh, it's time for me to take a little break, right? And so that is why that's important to understand how is it affecting our bodies and also just to have the recognition that the stress that we're feeling in our lives is impacting us in a physical way. So having that awareness, what am I feeling? Can I name it? Can I put a name to that emotion, not just the thought? And where is it coming up in my body? And then we can start making choices. I was giving a workshop to law students recently, and I gave them a mnemonic to remember when they're in stressful situations or really any time. And the mnemonic is PACE, Pace. And the P stands for pausing, just pause. Pause before you react, pause before you respond. Take a breath, take a beat. So something happens before you act, just pause. That pause can be just to take a deep breath. That pause can be to write something. If you are a journaler, just take a moment just to write something, even if it's a sentence. What am I feeling right now? Or I need to take a pause. It could be taking a walk. It could be getting a glass of water. It could be talking to someone trusted, but just pausing and acknowledging. Well, the next one, actually, A is acknowledge. Acknowledge what you're feeling. Acknowledge the story that you may be telling yourself in that moment. Try to do it without judgment. You pause for a minute and then you just acknowledge, hey, I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I'm sad. Whatever it is, just acknowledge it without putting a good, bad value judgment on it. This is how I'm feeling. Just meeting yourself where you are in that moment. And then the C stands for choose or choice. Set an intention for how you want to be in that moment. Do I want to be calm? Do I want to be responsive? Do I want to be clear? Do I want to be compassionate, grounded, supportive? What do I want to be in this moment so that that guides your next step with intention? And then the E stands for engage. So it's bringing that choice to action through whatever movement that is. You're basically living your choice at that point. And I like to say you're also living your values. It really helps to anchor whatever choice you're making in your values. So, what do I want to stand for? Even when life is difficult, even if this is a difficult choice, what do I want to stand for? What values are important to me? How does that direct and help to define my choice right now and my action right now? So remember pace, pause, acknowledge, choose, and then engage. So that helps us to build this emotional regulation. And then it's important to remember that this all hopefully is going to be done with some sense of connection. Emotional wellness doesn't happen in isolation. And what we know is that the legal profession has been named, has the dubious distinction of being the loneliest of professions. So that it means many of us are working and living and acting in isolation, whether that is self-imposed or whether that is the situation that we find ourselves in. Many times we are or feel isolated. So that connection piece is really important. It's important for our emotional health. We heal through community. We heal through shared experience and knowing that we're not alone. So, some other ways that we can start to regulate, and things honestly that have worked for me, movement, whether that is just a really gentle yoga class or stretching, or going out for a run, going for a walk in nature. So that hits actually two of them, the movement and the nature. Being in nature is very regulating for our central nervous system and calming. And so just going for a walk in the middle of the day, I am a huge advocate of moving meetings. So if you can have a meeting so that you're not losing productivity time, if that's important, try doing it outside, walk around the block, even walk in your office space if that's what you have to do. But moving and journaling is something that has really worked for me. So getting your thoughts and feelings from your head out onto paper. If it's easier for you, or if it works better for you to record something, to talk to a trusted friend, but getting it out of your head into out so that you can have some perspective. Even writing it down for yourself gives perspective. Meditation is my go-to, and I know many people say that they can't meditate. They've got too many thoughts, they can't meditate. And I always say, if you can breathe, you can actually meditate, because meditation doesn't have to be sitting someplace in silence with your legs crossed and, feeling like your goal is to eliminate any thoughts from your mind. Meditation can simply be bringing your awareness to your breath. So, in that pause that we talked about, and this could be 30 seconds or it could be 5 minutes or longer, but simply noticing the breath moving in and out of your body. And as thoughts come into your mind, as they will, just gently, without judgment, bringing your attention back to your thoughts, or I'm sorry, back to your breath, from your thoughts back to your breath. Another thing that you can do is to count your breaths if that's easier. Just one inhalation and exhalation is one, and count up to 10 and then start over. If you lose track, just simply start over again. These are things to basically be able to, again, give that space and to allow yourself to get to a little bit of a centering or grounding time. There may be lots of other ways, lots of other things that people do to find some calm and space in their day. Being out in nature, I mentioned, I love going out with no shoes on and just allowing my feet to connect with the grass or the soil or the sand or whatever is near me. That could be something that's very calming. Playing with a pet is also emotionally regulating, just giving ourselves a break. Playing generally, that is one of my goals for this year, for 2025, has been to add more play into my life. My daughter said to me, "Do you even have a hobby? Do you do anything that is for pure enjoyment?" And that was a bit of a wake-up call for me. And so I now am very intentional about what can I do? What can I add to my life that is not for a purpose of achieving anything, just for fun? So that could be playing with one of our pets. I'm taking up golf again. I want to learn how to knit. And it could be something, it could be just spending some time coloring or drawing or something, playing an instrument, but doing something that is for the purpose of just the pure enjoyment of it, as opposed to um, achieving something. Dancing. And one person I just talked to said that every day for at least 2 minutes, this person just puts on some music and dances. So doing something where you can just kind of connect and express yourself and feel free to express yourself. But it's so important to find something that is going to allow you that release in the day. So, to close this, emotional wellness is not a destination, it's a journey, it's a way of being. And so it's something that we're not going to achieve in a day or a week or even a year. It's just something that we continue to practice, right? To practice and to be in that state of being as much as possible, or as much on a regular basis as possible. Wherever you are on that journey, that's okay. Wherever you are, that's okay. It's about meeting yourself where you are today and then tomorrow, because you'll be at a different place tomorrow. And you may feel like you're going backwards instead of forwards. That happens. It's being compassionate with yourself. So as you tap into what am I feeling? What, not just what I'm thinking, what am I feeling right now? Where am I feeling that in my body? Every time you can just pause and do that and give yourself an honest answer, that's a win. Every time you pause, take a breath, allow yourself some space, that's a win. Every time you're willing to meet yourself where you are today with kindness, with self-compassion, with patience, that's a win. So today and every day, I wish you emotional wellness, space, those pauses in your day, and lots of self-compassion so that your own cup is filled, so that your own well is filled, and you have everything to be able to pour out to all of the people in your life. I wish you well.